Change doesn't cause you to suffer, it's your inability to adapt to it. Life constantly shifts, the people around you, your habits, your routines, the environment that you're in. But most people try and keep living the same way after things have changed. But that's where the friction comes from. You're trying to use an old version of yourself in the new situation. It's like trying to install an old version of Windows on your brand new PC. They simply don't work together. They're not aligned anymore. You lose a routine, a habit, or a relationship, and you keep the expectations, the priorities, and the behaviors the exact same, and you wonder why everything feels off. Your life doesn't get harder when things change. It gets harder when you don't. People don't fail at quitting. They fail at building a life around what they've now quit. You remove the habit, but you keep the lifestyle that depended on it. The habit wasn't just pleasurable. It made your life tolerable. Let's say you quit weed, and you still lounge around watching Netflix all day, indulging in low stimulation activities. Well, now all those activities feel empty and low, so you crave going back, because that habit was the thing that fueled that activity. If your life only works with that habit, you'll keep going back. When you remove something, you don't just remove that thing, you remove everything that it was supporting. Habits aren't isolated, they're ingrained in your environment, your routines, and your identity. So when you remove habits, you create gaps. If you don't fill these gaps will keep pulling you back, because you're not missing the habit, but you're missing what it filled. For example, you quit getting high, now your evenings feel purposeless and boring and empty. Or you leave a relationship and suddenly your days have gaps in it where you used to text her. It's not just loss, it's missing structure. You don't relapse because you miss it. You relapse because of what's now missing. You don't move on by resisting the old. You move on by replacing it with something better. If you try to just stop, you create a void. But if you actively try and build a new life, new activities, new sources of fulfillment, and new priorities, the old thing just becomes irrelevant. Instead of sitting in the same routines, you start training, you start building something, you start spending time with people, you start experimenting to see what activities feel good sober. Now your life actually works without the old habit. But not only that, but it thrives without the old habit. The new sources of fulfillment, the new things that fuel you, wouldn't be possible with that old habit, meaning that you don't have a reason to go back. You no longer crave it because your life wouldn't exist with the old habit. You don't quit things, you outgrow them. After a breakup, you're not just missing the person, you're missing what they once filled. Relationships structure your time, attention, and emotional energy. When they've gone, you're left with empty space. If you don't consciously fill that space, it turns into longing. You used to text them, plan things, and do things with them. But now you're just sat in the empty space that they used to fill, feeling their absence. You don't miss them as such, you miss what filled your life. Life moves in phases, but you're trying to live like nothing's changed. Every phase of life requires a different version of you, requires different skills, different habits, different priorities. When things change, like a breakup or quitting a habit, you're in a new season. But if you try to live like you're in the old season, everything feels wrong. And rightly so, because you're not in the old season. It's like going down to the beach in prime winter, wearing only shorts, and you complain about how life is because of how cold it is. And someone says, have you thought about putting on a coat? And you go, nah, I was here 6 months ago and it was boiling. You don't need a coat. Then they go, you stupid idiot, mate. You've got to adapt to the weather. You can't just stay in the same season. It's clear that it's changed and you have to make accommodations for the change. Otherwise, you rightly so feel like, because you haven't acclimatized to your environment, you're still stuck in the old season. You either fight the season or you adapt to it and find all the great things that this season has to offer. You might not be able to go to the beach anymore, but you can go to a coffee shop by the fire and have a nice hot coffee. Or maybe you start looking for a snowy hill to go sledding down. But if you look for that same hill in summer, you'll be gritting and grinding all the way down that hill, and you'll probably get pretty scuffed up doing it. You're not lost. You're just living like you're in a season that's over. You only crave what still feels like the best option. And rightly so. That's a pretty basic, fundamental mechanism that humans have in order to adapt their decision-making progress. If you make the wrong choice, you feel like it's the wrong choice, and you try and do everything you can to go back, because then it stops you from making the same wrong decision in the future. But when your new life creates fulfillment, the old things you used to do no longer make sense. It would actually take away from what you've now built. If you re-indulged in those habits that you used to love, it would take away from that sense of satisfaction and fulfillment and pleasure that you now feel. So it no longer makes sense to do the old habits. You no longer feel drawn to them. For example, you build purpose, routine, better habits, more meaningful connections. Now going back to the old habit would interrupt your life, not improve it. You stop craving it when it no longer fits the life that you've built. If your main goal is feeling better quickly, relapse will always be the answer. Addiction locks you into one priority: relief. So when life feels uncomfortable after quitting, your brain goes to the fastest solution: relapse, because nothing else in your life is currently competing with it. The human brain is literally built for problem solving. It's built to see a problem and find the most direct route to the solution, despite the long-term consequences or effects. But your job is to direct the long term. You quit, life feels flat, you have no other source of relief. Now relapse almost feels logical. But if your priority shifts from relief to purpose and growth, relapse is no longer useful. It's no longer the most logical or the most efficient answer, because you're now looking for something deeper, for something more. If relief is your goal, relapse will always be the answer.
Alrighty then.